Hello, I'm Dan Brown, the director, cinematographer, and editor of Hunger, which was put together by My Little Rascal Productions. And once again, honored, thrilled, delighted, and honored again to have been asked to be a part of this project. And I, once again, tried to bring something new and different, but still bring my best, but to try something new and different for their project. And in this project, this is called Hunger, as I mentioned, and it's sort of a genre-bending horror film that Lisa Sorrentino wrote, and I really loved it. I loved the idea of taking something that could be just a traditional horror film, a ghost or a monster or a serial killer, and twisting it up a bit and bringing some emotion into it, and I love that. And late in the game, I talked about seeing if we could make this seem like an 80s film, make it a little bit campy. For one, it was just a challenge for me that I hadn't done before, and two, it's a low budget type horror film, and there was a lot of low budget horror films in the 80s, and so I wanted to work within that space if it was possible, and she agreed to it. It did mean that the budget went up from what they originally had because they had to buy some new stuff to decorate the rooms. But it all worked out. And I should say that when I first started storyboarding, I was storyboarding based off of what I thought was the correct layout of their living room. But they got some new furniture and things got moved around. And on the day, we had to redesign some of the shots. But hey, it worked out. I think it works out great. So let's start going through this. Instead of using Final Cut Pro and showing you all the filters, I just have the final rendered film here in my little QuickTime player, and we're just going to go about it this way. I don't need to show you filters and the timeline and all that stuff, so let's just go through it. So first of all, oh yeah, that's much louder. Oh my gosh. Okay, so as you can see, right off the bat, we start with something that looks like old 80s film. I will say that when I compress this for YouTube, and if this goes out to YouTube, there's a weird little thing going on here. I don't see it on my screen, but it goes pretty black on the left and right sides. It almost looks like this effect of the color and all that stuff is just sort of the middle third of the screen, and I don't know why why the export looks like that. It doesn't look like that right here on my screen. Let me move here. Oh, I guess, will this work? See how there's like a little white dot there? The effect does go all the way out to about the very edge, but mostly right here it looks pretty black on YouTube, and I don't know why that is. And there's another little speck right there. So one of the things I realized about 80s films is you don't want to just add just any film grain. A lot of the film grain, if you look at some of these films that haven't been totally remastered and the negatives being rescanned, is film isn't just little black specks. There are white specks on it too, and that was sort of the magical little change that I made, that I was using just straight up film grain effects that was all black, and that was that. But once I switched over to a little bit of white specks as well, that just brought it all together, and I loved it. So we're going here with some 80s looking titles. It's pretty glitchy. It's more glitchy than the rest of the film is. You can see a lot of the white specks going on. Again, like there we go. So you got some specks there and there. Oops, did I just scroll this movie? Oh, I can scroll the movie with the thumbnail, with the scroll wheel. I wasn't aware of that. So we got some white dots here. So yeah, just wanted to point out those little white specks. And as you can see, this does, this goes all the way to the edge. It misses it over here. But that's okay. I was going for a little bit of imperfection. I wanted to give it a sort of campy look. The hairs and stuff and whatnot. This title was something I made in Photoshop, and then I brought it into Final Cut, and just, the text was its own layer, and I just animated it from small to a little bit larger. I just animated the size of it. That's all I did. There is a filter over this whole thing, because again, I wanted it to be like film, and HD video can be extra sharp, almost too sharp. And it can look like video. So I softened the entire film. All the footage, everything is softened by about 2 pixels. I don't even know what you would call it, but if you really zoomed in on this, you can see there's no straight, harsh line. If you go to any film from the 80s, again, if it wasn't, I guess there were some low-budget films in the 80s that somehow used video titles. I don't know how they did that. They made titles in the computer and put it over footage that was scanned in from film, so the film quality footage looks a little blurry, looks organic, but then the titles look extra harsh, and I always thought that was weird. But I wanted to go with like the original, like if you filmed your titles and then put the two pieces of film on top of each other, so you can superimpose the filmed titles over the film footage. And so I wanted to make it look soft. So everything is soft here, but just a tiny bit. And yeah, so the font, I don't remember what the font was, but then I found teeth online, and I just resized them to fit here and here, and added some blood splatter effects, and actually chose to sort of a cutout too, so it just looks kind of gnarly, looks kind of gnarly. And the text, when I saw it, it kind of reminded me of the Jaws text, the very fat, blocky Jaws, and so again, that was something I was trying to do to bring about the 80s feel to it. And also the big chunky text allowed me to fit in some teeth fairly nicely. All of this music, by the way, is all from Artlist. For a while, I couldn't find any music that even sounded good at all, let alone music that sounded good and was at a fair price. And Artlist, check them out, artlist.io, I guess. You pay one fee, you go into their entire library, you can download as much as you want, and even if you unsubscribe, that music is yours for the keeping forever, which you can do whatever you want with. Do something non-commercial, you can do something commercial, you can use it for the internet, you can use it for television. You have indefinite rights to that particular music. The only thing you cannot do is sell the music yourself. You can make money off of your movies that use the music, but you can't, put all that music onto a CD yourself and sell it. So, my gosh, the 80s stuff that they had on here was incredible. All right, first shot of the film. We're finally at the first shot of the film. So the idea that I had here was that, spoiler alert, go watch the film if you haven't watched the film already, because I'm going to get into spoilers at the get-go here. The idea of this package, because it is coming from his dead wife, I wanted to hint at the idea that this package was coming from heaven. So I also I did this in the other movie as well, a House Call, where we start black, and instead of fading up to anything, the only reason that the image appears is because there's a light source that comes into frame. So we're in a van that looks kind of scary. That is actually a Postal Service jacket, a real Postal Service jacket that we got on eBay, but you don't see the Postal Service logo or anything, so I know it's illegal to just show the post office logo, but you can't see it. So the reason this is so overexposed is, one, we didn't have enough money for practical reasons, we didn't have enough money to film, change all the cars and get a bunch of 80s cars in the background. The houses are pretty timeless in the background, so that could have been any year. But also the big main reason, the narrative reason for it being overblown, is I want to feel like this package is coming out of heaven, because this radio is being delivered to this man from his deceased wife. So that was really the artistic narrative reason for why this box is coming out of such bright light. It is to show that make it seem like it's coming from heaven. When I came into the room, this was already set up like this. I guess Lisa set this up, or I don't know if they had anyone else kind of put this together, but I love the way they laid everything out. and I just pop my camera right there. We did move the chairs around. I did want to keep some balance, so this chair is here and this chair is here, and they were, if you actually were in the room, you would see that these chairs are not positioned in a way that like it would be comfortable to sit. It looks normal here, but we moved them all kinds of crazy around just so I could have 2 chairs on either side and balance it up a bit. Now, if you notice David and Jaquinley's name, watch very carefully their names. It's subtle, but can you see that they are sliding inwards from their from each of their edges, the outside edges, they slowly move towards each other. That is my subtle way of saying that these characters are coming together. I want to do something with the titles as well. I didn't want to go all out with the titles and do all sorts of crazy effects because I don't think that would match the campiness of the 80s style film. But I still wanted to do something more than just have text on screen. I want something to happen with the text, whether it be the font or whether it be how the font is presented to you. I want to do something that can help tell the story. Like I said in previous commentaries, there's so many things that you can do with film: the lighting, the performances, the camera, the effects, the credits, the music. All of that are tools for you to be able to tell your story. And I'm not saying you're wrong if you just put text on the screen and just leave it at that. You're welcome to do it. You're welcome to not do it. That doesn't make you a better or worse filmmaker. I'm just saying that I like to take every opportunity I can to tell the story with whatever tools that I have at my disposal. And if I'm able to control the text, the credits, and I can do something with that, then I will. So that's why I have these 2 names coming together, because these 2 are going to be reuniting. And then I took that motif and I applied it to all the credits. So it's not just their name. I guess we'll also do here. So once again, I tried to compose the shot. I'll get back to the text in a second when we see the next line of credits. But here, we love putting the killer poster here and the house call poster there. So, you know, we gotta throw in our little past movies. At last minute, we decided to put this fish tank here, and I thought that was really cool. But then it looked kind of blank, so I just took a couple of the Chinese food fortune cookies, and I put them here. It was just like a scrap of paper and 1 fortune cookie. And I feel like when it's this close to the screen, the camera lens, it adds a lot with having just a little. I wanted to, look at the frame and say, what can I do to grunge it up a bit and make the house look a little bit more disheveled. And yeah, I'm always worried about composition, so I made sure that the killer poster is completely in the shot, and that at the top left, and that the Chinese food cookies, fortune cookies on the bottom right are completely in the shot. But it's still, everything can still draw your eye to the human David in the shot. So here we go, written by and Lisa Sorrentino. You'll see that the written by and the Lisa Sorrentino come together. So I'm going just with that motif, these 2 things on opposite sides coming together. Now, I am not actually in the back of a van that is moving for this footage. I am just, the van is parked and I'm shaking the camera. I guess we should talk about this van a bit. I was going to see about renting a van, but they had a friend who they said he had a van, or he had a work vehicle, and I was so excited. He brought it over, and it was not actually a van. It was like a work truck, like a flatbed truck, which was not what we wanted, because I talked about the light coming in when the door's opening and everything, and I thought that we were screwed. We didn't have anything, but he actually had a van also, and he went and came back and got it. And when I opened up the van, there was literally no space in this van. It was packed with wires and brushes and shelves of stuff. There was so much stuff in there. I don't even know. So we had to take out a bunch of stuff, and I'm still barely fitting in. I mean, I cannot move any further back than this. I would have liked a slightly wider shot, but it's fine. I think I had an LED light sort of wedged in there too to get this box illuminated some. But anyway, the truck wasn't moving. The truck was just sitting there, or the van was just sitting there, and I just shook the camera a little bit. And then we had the sound guy actually sit in the back and drive around with the van, so we got the sound of the truck van moving, and I just merged the two together, the audio of the van moving and then this footage of me just kind of shaking the camera around. So this is from a bunch of pictures that I shot of these two with my iPad, actually, and I ran it through some old school filters and stuff to make it look like an old school Polaroid, and then we printed it out on the Polaroid pictures, or not Polaroid, but just, like film prints from like Staples or whatever. I'm not sure where they came from. And here we've deliberately made sure that the focus is so shallow that you only see his face clearly. She's still really blurry because she's actually dead. We don't know that yet. I know, the audience doesn't know that, but it's a clue that something has happened to her. She's out of focus. She's in focus in the picture in real life, but I've filmed it so only his face, that plane of the image is in focus. And you'll see later that she actually becomes in focus. Once she's been revealed, we come back to this picture and she's actually in focus at that point. And these benches were shot by where I live. They came out, and it was the same day that we were rehearsing, and it was real fun. And I wanted the actors to get together. I know these guys are both fantastic actors, but it's nice to meet your co-stars before you shoot a film. I wanted them to have a little bit of just natural chemistry that came from the fact that they've already spoken with each other and met each other. I just think that helps. If you can do it, I think you should do it. And we only had the one day to shoot, so I wanted to get as much as I could done before the shoot day that I could. And you'll notice again, a lot of this stuff is still, there's a little bit of a blur to it. Nothing is completely perfectly sharp. It was filmed sharply, but I added a tiny little filter just to blur it by there's a number thing there. It says 0.0 when there's nothing, and you can go all the way up to 100, and I did like 0.2 or something. All these birds and stuff in the window, that's all sound effects that I added. It was pretty darn quiet on set that day. There wasn't much going on.
Miss you so much.
Also, what I did was, when watching a lot of 80s films and really trying to study not just their visuals, but the sound, I noticed that a lot of old films, they don't have the full, rich, dynamic range of sound today. There's a little bit of a hollowness to it. It's not as bassy, a lot of these older films. It's not like the audio is coming out of a radio or anything, but there's just a little less bass. There's more mids. I don't know how to explain it because I'm not a professional sound guy, but to my ear, there's not as much bass in these older films. I suppose if you were watching on like a sound bar and you have a subwoofer, you might be adjusting your EQ and stuff, but with all things being equal, if I watch a film from 2019 and then I put on a film from 1960 and I don't adjust any audio settings or EQ settings, the 1960 film is a lot less bassy. It's a lot more mid. So I went in and I took a lot of the bass out of this. To give it a little bit of a hollowness to it. The dog barking was part of this background sound effects, but I lined it up so the dogs start barking when the doorbell rings. So now we're back to this package again. It's front and center because this is an important object. I subscribe to the school of only cut to a close-up when it's absolutely necessary. And since this is the focal point of, this is what's going to change his life forever, it's front and center. And you can hear the truck driving away as soon as he opens the door, so he doesn't have a chance to see the truck, and that was recorded by our sound guy outside, and we just let the truck drive off, and we recorded the truck driving off. I'm not doing this with any script. I'm just going free for all here. So the camera is above his eye line, and that is because I wanted to suggest that we are looking down at him from above, like from heaven, because this is where the package is supposed to come from someone who's deceased. So the camera is sort of the POV of his deceased wife looking down on him as he picks up this package. Now this door actually was it was fully closed in one shot, but then when we redid some of these close-ups here when he picks up the package, the door was actually open a little bit. Right in this area here, you could see the door open and you could see inside. So I had to darken it up and mask it, and I did all sorts of stuff to hide it and cut it off right at the box and animated the dark mask, so as the box lifts up, the dark area lifts up with it, so you don't see the box getting covered in some dark shadow. So yeah, I had to fix that. And then I cut right before you see the door again to make less work for me. Now we're back on the wide shot where the door was closed, but it was a little bit open again in this other shot here. It was open, so whoops. Trying to move the camera more. I usually, I know the camera's always, I'm just trying to move the camera more since I keep it stationary so much. I had a lot more storyboards for the way he walked in and came up the steps, and so my one regret from what I could have done for this film is that I hold on to this shot a little too long. I would have liked to do a little bit more. I had a lot more storyboards, but while I was able to figure out other shots, on the day that really worked, this was the one thing that I think went on a little too long. And I wish I came up with other things to break up this shot. I wish I got more of a close-up of the radio at that moment. But more music from Artlist.
Happy anniversary, babe.
So this dialogue was recorded in a closet right here in the room, like near the end of the shoot. And I forgot how Jaquinley read it in one way, and now I'm not remembering how I directed her. I asked her to try it a different way, which is the way we are hearing it here, and I forgot exactly what I said, but I only had to give like a 2-word like direction, and she changed how she did it and nailed it on that first try based off of my direction. And I was like, oh my god, that's perfect. Yeah, we don't need to do any more. I gave her the one direction and she did it perfectly right after that, and it was great.
I know how much you wanted one of these old-fashioned radios.
I think she was reading it sort of the way like you would read a card to someone. And I said, how about instead of like speaking as if you're reading it to someone, say the lines as if you're speaking to him personally. You're not reading off a card, you're just talking to him. I think it was something like that.
I hope it brings you as much happiness as you give me. I love you always. See.
And of course there's a lot of reverb in the voice, given that ethereal, that past. So yeah, they got the fish tank and they popped it here, and it actually worked out. It gives you some texture, changes the color of things, and we sat here waiting for this fish to swim by, and I didn't want to waste too much video, so I wasn't always recording, but when it looked like the fish was getting close to doing something, like coming by, I would hit record real quick. So the fish had turned around. This might be like the first shot. Oh no, I also had to get out of the way. I hit record and I could see my reflection in the glass and I had to get the hell out of the way. So this is like the first frame where the fish was heading in the direction we needed and I had gotten out of the way. And once the fish started going, we're like, okay, when the fish gets to a certain point, then you go, David. And I'll do the rack focus because I had to be kind of in the way so I can... Oh, but I don't do the rack focus there. I don't know. There's the first main shot. I will say that to get this little spot of light right here, we did have to... That's the light pole right there. So equipment is in the shot right there. But it's so thin, I don't know if anyone really even knows what it is. I don't know if anyone would know what it is. But that's what it is. It's the light that's shining down from the top here. And yeah. I'm not sure where Lisa bought that radio. There was two versions of the radio. One that was like that had the skull on it, and there was another one that didn't have a skull-looking thing. But I thought the skull was pretty darn cool. So this is after I had rack focused. So that's what I meant by I had to be in the glass a little bit so I could do the rack focus. This, oh god, okay. So my one regret with what I filmed was that extra long shot that I wish I could have broken up into other angles, but this is the one moment where, oh man, I really failed as a director. I think I just was trying to make sure we could get through things. I don't know, I shouldn't make excuses, but this is where David was supposed to cry, supposed to tear, and he wasn't sure if he could get a tear going, and then he actually did. But right when the tear was starting, I started grabbing the camera and I was moving. I was trying to get different tight shots on him, and I started adjusting the camera, and yeah, it was right when the tears started happening. It was right when I started lifting up the camera and moving it, and Jaquinley saw it, and she was like, oh, you know that he's crying now, you got a tear, and you and I just feel so terrible that I ruined that moment for him. He worked so hard to get to that point, and I'm just, oh god, I cringe at myself when I see this shot, because I really feel like I failed the actors at this moment, and I've since apologized profusely, and I'm just so glad that they, they were still a joy to work with and they weren't pissed at me through the rest of the shoot. But I guess that's what comes with the fact that, it's a small crew, I'm directing and I'm shooting and I'm moving lights around. We had people helping me as well, but I had a lot of stuff to think about, but no excuses. I really needed to have paid more attention in that moment, and it's a big regret of mine, but David is such a great actor that even without that, with what I missed from him, he still shines in the film. So thank you, David, for saving my directing. This was something that I did on my iPhone. I did a time-lapse. I saw that the storm was coming, and this is at my old house. I had it propped up, pointed out my window, and the clouds come. I stopped my time-lapse before the clouds fully made it to the bottom right-hand corner, so I just fade out. But I thought this would be I found a great use for this, because night is coming, and this is like such a spooky night shot. And I did a little bit of color correction and stuff to make it look more filmic. But I love the transition. Now, for this, the timing wasn't exactly right when David wakes up to the flashing of the radio, and I feel like I don't remember what it was, but what I had to do was I decided to freeze frame him at the moment right before he started waking up. Now, if you freeze frame this footage, there was some natural noise going on from my camera sensor. It's a Micro Four Thirds camera, so it does pick up noise in low light. But when I freeze frame the shot, then the noise is frozen as well. So I had to add my own noise back in, put it back over it. So if I press play here, you can actually see like little spots and stuff moving around. But yeah, the shot is frozen there, and this actually there we go. I took a mask and I put it around the clock here. So because they were flickering it on and off, but in the edit it wasn't flickering at exactly the right times that I wanted or exactly the way I wanted to, so I just kept jumping between the version of the light being on and the version of the light being off that I had, and I would just manually switch between which shot I wanted. And again, the only portion of the shot with it on was cut out specifically around here, so you didn't see a lot of, so the jump cutting is just happening in here. So I could time it to exactly the static sounds that I want, because we didn't have those static sounds. We were just kind of flickering this light just without any idea of what the noise would really sound like. And once I got the noise going, I said, okay, I can flicker it here and flicker it there, and I could fine-tune it to exactly how I wanted. So let's go back. So it's like long, long. And then I could time exactly when I wanted him to wake up, because it was frozen right before he started doing all this movement. So I can say, you know, what point in the static is like loud enough that he should be waking up, or how long should the static have been going before he wakes up. I could control all of that. So between him, the flashing light, and the static, all three things I could time independently, so they all worked together as best as I could get them, the way that I thought would work.
How about an anniversary toast, honey?
And how about an anniversary? I have just done that just to scare my roommates and friends sometimes when I want it to be a ghost voice, where it builds up from like the first letter of the word is sort of dragging. The H of how is how about, and I told her about that. I don't like to do line readings. I hate line readings as a director. You don't want to perform for the actor and then say, perform it like this. Let me do the performance to show you, and now you replicate that, because that's just like, for any actor who's, smart, they'll think, well, then you act, my friend. If you can act it, then you act it. But this was just that weird little, like, I didn't know how to explain what I was thinking, so I had to sort of do a performance, and I made sure to let them know, like, obviously I'm not doing it justice. I'm not a performer, I'm not an actor. So if that's the blueprint. If you can bring the character to that, how about an anniversary? And she did it flawlessly. I love it. And we didn't get David sitting up in this close-up. I kind of wish we did, but that's why I don't mind. He does get up from this angle, but it just the timing wasn't right in the edit, so I decided to cut to this shot so we can cut away from him, so we can give him time to sit up without him being seen. And now when we cut to him, he's up already, and I decided to cut right as his head was moving, also to sort of add to that, he's still getting up, he's still moving, he's not just sitting there stationary. And Jaquinley was out of frame for a little bit, and that's what we see here now. I've superimposed the version of the living room corner where she wasn't here, so that's on top of the footage of him on the couch. And technically she actually is standing in the corner, but on top of her standing in the corner is footage of the room being empty. So when it looks like she's fading in as a ghost, as she slowly dissolves into the world, it's not footage of her fading in, it's footage of the empty living room fading out and revealing her like a curtain being pulled back. So she was just sitting there the whole time while he's rubbing his eyes and everything. That she's sitting there. Or standing there. And then I dissolve it out. And at the same time, I'm also racking focus to her.
I see you couldn't wait to open your present.
So he's centered in frame. You want to do like the looking room. There's multiple ways to do looking room. You can generally, you want to have him on the right third since he's looking from right to left. But I'm centering him for now so we can get I want to be able to see the radio in the background to remind people where this is all coming from, and also because this is an important moment for him, and she hasn't sat down yet, so we're going to get to the close-ups, but...
Wait. What the fuck?
And I love this light that they bought with all the different little bulbs, and you can rotate it any which way you want. I wanted to angle it in a way where you can see a lot of these little flares and everything. I really wanted to look ethereal and magical, and it's like she's creating... There's a halo around her a little bit, and again, it's sort of like, heaven is... She's from heaven, she's from the afterlife, so there's this sort of, interesting otherworldly light going on.
No, this isn't real. You're dead.
Don't be silly. I'm right here. Do I look dead to you? You must have been dreaming.
No, I buried you.
So again, close-ups for me. If there's a beat, that's a good time to consider an edit to a close-up. So when she says, "Do I look dead to you?" This is when he doesn't believe it, but now he's really fighting against it. So this is when I really want to cut to a close-up, when the emotion has now been ratcheted up a notch.
You died in a car accident. You left me here alone.
And we talked about blocking because, she wants to reconnect with him. So when she sits down, she's at the furthest away portion of the couch. But as they talk, she shifts a little bit closer and a little bit closer until finally they kiss. And I love this kind of stuff where I'm letting the camera be a little bit loose. I'm a lot of times I had my camera movements be very mechanical, but that's not how it was in the 80s. So I wanted to loosen up my tripod head a little bit and just follow along with them as best I can. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit of shakiness. It's just go with it. And I was really happy to do that. It felt good to try something new and for me, an experiment. And I was very happy with the results. This little turn here, bring the camera in like that. A lot of times I would just have the actors move into frame, but here I was happy to start moving the camera to meet her hand. And now the music that's starting, you can hear it. This really does sound like it's on the radio. All the bass is out of it. It sounds very tinny. And that is because I do want it to sound like it's coming out of the radio. But then eventually the music for the audience comes outside of the radio. And then we just are hearing the music naturally out of our own speakers as they dance.
Dance with me. This is our favorite song.
No, this is not our favorite song.
So I had a lot of other ideas for how we would show this radio as they were dancing, and because as I mentioned before, the the living room was arranged differently, but we still got the things we needed to get. It just wasn't what I had storyboarded, but it's fine. It makes me have to think on the fly and get creative, and these are all things I need to do more as a filmmaker. Joey really wanted this colorful phone on the bottom left-hand corner. He wanted it hanging somewhere, and I couldn't really find a place to use it. But he was like, he said that it's okay if we don't use it. He wanted to use it, but if we didn't get a chance to use it, then that's just what it is. But then I found in this wide shot, I said, I bet I could put it there somewhere. It's actually just like on a big pile of like clothes and stuff from the actors' actual personal clothes. I brought some stuff up and just kind of propped it up a tiny little bit and put it down there. It adds some texture to it. I don't know if you can tell that it's a phone, but it's something kind of cute to look at. And the other thing I haven't mentioned so far is, so let me talk about the little technicals a little bit. I am shooting, as I have done since the beginning of working with My Little Rascal. I am still using my old, it's like 6-year-old Panasonic GH4. And in previous films, when I wasn't the director, I was trying to shoot in color profiles that would allow them to do some color correction. And then I started moving towards profiles that looked good, like it could be used as is for the film. I settled on Cinelike V, and not D, but Cinelike V, as in Vericam. I don't know. That has really nice colors to it. The blacks are pretty crushed, but I can bring them up a little bit. And I use my Sigma 18-35 APS-C lens on the GH4 with a speed booster. And then, but for this film, I wanted to give it, I always shoot in the 235 or 239 aspect ratio, but I wanted to do something a little bit extra to make it a bit more authentic. I was playing around with anamorphic lenses, and there was nothing that I could get that I could afford, and when I set it up, the monitoring solutions, everything would have just tripled the cost, and I just didn't have that money. So what I did have, however, was a 0.45x wide-angle lens, not a fisheye, but a wide-angle lens that happened to be the same thread size, I think 72 millimeters, as the Sigma. So I was able to screw on the 0.45 wide-angle lens on top of my Sigma 18-35, so it made the image even wider, but it also had its own subtle, like it just warps the light a tiny little bit. It added its own texture to it, where it gave it a little bit of old school feel to it, which was so cool. I really liked it, and so that's what I'm using here. I wouldn't have been able to get as wide as this shot is just with the 18-35 where the camera was positioned, but there's some, like, I don't know, not chromatic aberration, but there's something that happens with straight lines that it smears a little bit, and it's so cool. I loved it. So that's what we used for this.
None of this is real. None of this is real. I don't care. I don't care.
We wanted to use all sorts of sparks and things, and I just couldn't get that to work. I tried, and the lights are flickering. We did have people on either side plugging and unplugging or using switches to flick the lights on and off. But without like the sparks and everything, it still wasn't enough. So I went in and I found some like light leaks and lens flare effects. And as you can see, like in this shot, you can see this like purple haze that's passing by. So these are all light leaks that I've added. There's a big spot right here, this big circular thing here. So these are all things that I added later just to start to make it look a bit more chaotic. Here it is down here as well. It's moving all around. But the camera's fairly stationary except for tilting up when needed to keep their heads in the shot. And again, see, this is one of those things where in other movies I might just lock the camera down and not move it. And if their heads went out of frame, then I would either do another take where their heads don't go out of frame, or I would digitally tilt up in post to make it look as just sharp and mechanical as possible. But I didn't want to do that for this film, so I loosened up my tripod, and if their head started to go out of frame, I would just move the camera up, just like, one should do. But for the most part, it is fairly stationary, which I kind of like because it makes them coming together. When I cut into the close-up and it's straight up handheld, it just adds that much more punch to this moment. And so since we didn't get sparks coming out of the lights, what I did do was I found these clear light bulbs at a hardware store, and I filmed this at my house, and I just panned left and right on these bulbs while I was flickering them myself, because you can see the filament in it, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, these lights were not at their house. These bulbs are at my house. But look how cool. That's just a cool looking light bulb. It is a cool looking light bulb. It's hard to find these things, now. That's in one light fixture. That's the same light fixture from another angle. And there's this one flickering light right in the center there. Can you see? Yeah, that's one of my ceiling lights. Again, just flickering. Just to add more chaos to it. And you can see the rainbow of color, the red on his cheek, the yellow on his jaw, the green on his neck, the blue right where JaQuinley's hand is, and the purple streak by his shoulder. All stuff that was light leaks that I added later to make it that much more colorful. And as the music fades down and they start to talk, not only does the music fade down, but I start to fade out all of these light leaks. So you can see the red in her hair right now and the green in her hair. Those are all the light leak effects, but they will all fade out. And oh, well, hold on. And, they're still flickering a little bit. Now they're out. And so here's that shot we were talking about before, where now I've changed the focus so it's on her because now she's been revealed. So kind of bookends that piece of it. This is simple little hidden cut, and I think it works perfectly for this type of film. So JaQuinley, I wonder if we should have done more to her face as well, because we could have actually done this by just painting her other hand, do different things with her nails on the other hand. But what this actually is us taking the camera, covering the frame completely with his back, and then doing a hidden cut. So let me rewind a little bit. All of this is one shot here. Then we cut. We stop the camera. We put JaQuinley in the makeup. We do her hands up. And then we start rolling again, starting from his back. And then come up to here. And now we see her black nails. And we got some light on them, on the tips, just so you can better see them. I love the shot so much. The lighting has changed a little bit. Like if you were to look carefully, you could see the bright light right on the outside of her cheek there. And when we come around, it's not there anymore. I relit it because I wanted to give it some drama. And so I don't mind if, there's some reflection of her shirt on the underside of her jaw there, but I'm here for the drama here, so it's okay that we relit and don't have it exactly the same. It's about the drama. From behind here, this is actually Joey, the back of Joey's head. He wore the outfit while JaQuinley was still getting makeup on. We only had the one day to shoot, so we needed to get as much done as we could. So while JaQuinley was getting on her makeup, we had someone stand in for her to at least get this shot. And then, of course, here we are with JaQuinley. And all of this was Lisa's work. She's doing all this fabulous work back to Joey's original shot. She's teaching herself how to do all of these makeup tutorials, and that's incredible. It's crazy. And so for this, the roar obviously is a sound effect, but then I also added a little camera shake filter. And that crunch noise, if I remember correctly, actually is me biting into a pomegranate. There was pomegranates. I was eating a pomegranate, and it just had the craziest sounds. And so I took 100 different bites of 2 different pomegranates and found ones that worked the best for this shot. All that crunching, that's all me squeezing and gnashing the pomegranate between my teeth. So there's also Lisa's fantastic gore work with the forehead. What I realized is in these shots, the lights... hold on. These shots, they were flickering the lights while she was doing this. People were on the lights flickering them. But when we got to this shot, no one was flickering the lights. And I realized that in the edit, so I have a flickering filter going on that brightens and darkens a little bit. But it's just a filter. No lights are actually turning on and off. It's just a brightness effect. And here, just because it was her close-up, I just wanted to get really, really grungy, so I like doubled the film damage effects. The film's really jittery. It's really dirty. We didn't realize that all the thick, visceral gunk would spill out of his forehead hole like that, but we went with it. And I don't know if that sound effect was from the film. I don't remember if we were rolling sound on this or not. Oh yeah, he does fall to the floor, so there was sound, but I don't remember if the gorish sound was recorded on set or if we did something ourselves. And there I use like a fisheye effect where I actually stretch out the footage and warp it right where her open mouth is. So this was with my one little LED light. I use these little Viltrox, like $30 lights. They're small, so they don't produce soft lighting, soft shadows, unless you want to bounce them off something. They're bicolor, but I put it on the coldest temperature, 5600. And if I brightened up the image any, you would see the light pole in the background right behind them, but I put it directly behind them, lifted it all the way up out of frame and pointed it down on them, and did a bunch of other filters to exaggerate the brightness and to give it a glow. Like, look at the glow like right above her hand, all of this glowingness. Look at all around her hair, there's all this glow. Here there's some glow too. So all that is filter. And there's this pixie dust filter that I added to make it more magical.
Now we can be together forever.
And then I ramp up the pixie dust and make it a little bit more chaotic as she's pulling him completely into the underworld as they fade out into the underworld. And this music here, also from Artlist, I downloaded all these 80s sounding music from Artlist, and I would put it on my iPhone and pop my headphones in, and I would just listen to it throughout the day and just listen to all these songs and try to imagine what scenes they could best be used for. And when I heard this song, the moment I heard this song, I said, oh my God, this would make an epic ending song. And it just from as soon as I heard it, I just knew. I secured it. I said, this will be the final music. Everything from after the last screech. And all the blue, this is... Right now it's playing. I said this. It sounds sad. It sounds mournful. It sounds a little scary as well. There's a creepiness to it, but it also sounds sad. And it was just everything that I thought that this scene was about. So it's here. It's playing. Yeah, I and I timed the next little piece of the song that's new, the I don't know. I said, well, when that happens, that'll be when we fade up and see what they look like in the afterlife. Love it. And then of course the yep, I'm gonna sing on this little commentary track. I was like, that's gonna be when it fades out to the credits. Oh yes. Yep, it's great. Went for a simple title at the end there. We've already seen what the movie was called. I wanted to go simple. All of this text I wanted to be super simple. I was kind of thinking of the credits of the original Nightmare on Elm Street. The font was a little bit more wobbly and looking, but still I was going for that simple text. Granted, the drums are a little bit modern coming up here, but I still think it works all really well. Yeah, just kept it very simple, and all that music was from Artlist. It doesn't say it's Artlist, but that's what all of this is from Artlist. And Artlist has albums, so when it says from the album Meet Me on the Beach, yeah, they release entire albums, and you can download the entire album. You can download one song, 2, 3, several, whatever you want to do. I don't know if this is I guess it's sometimes necessary. Yeah, some of these sound effects from Freesound do say like you can use it with, as long as you give us credit. So I put them. I don't know how you really do credits, so I just straight up just present the exact file name as it was listed when I downloaded it, and there's that. They always have a custom artwork at the end, which is so cool. So, yeah, like I said, and as you could probably have been able to tell, that I just did this off the cuff. I didn't know what I was going to say here today, so I hope that that's some information. Let me know what you think. I am Dan again, Dan Brown, director, cinematographer, and editor of Hunger. I thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned something, and go rewatch the film again now that you know some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe you'll have a new appreciation. I don't know. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.